West Virginia Villanova tomorrow night, 97.3 ESPN. We'll have it for you. Tony Caridi will call it for the Mountaineer Sports Network, and he joins us live from Boston, where the Sweet 16 originates tomorrow night. Tony, how you been, pal?
I'm well, Mike. How you doing? Good to hear your voice.
Good to hear yours. I hear it a lot, but it's good to be hearing it on the phone. I listen through the app quite frequently. This is a team, Villanova, of all the teams, that all the pressure that West Virginia turns teams over a lot. The one thing Villanova has is guards, so this one should be fun.
Yeah, I think it's a great matchup between two teams and two very different styles of play. And you're right, the X factor is going to be just what West Virginia's pressure will do to Villanova. And, in talking to WVU coaches, I asked, okay, so who's pressed them? And they said, well, really no one has pressed them, and just, not a lot of teams, as you know, consistently press. So they really don't have a whole lot on tape as to how Villanova is going to try to attack it. But I do know that, West Virginia lives off of it. The majority of its philosophy is based upon the press causing turnovers and getting easy baskets. So it'll be a fun game to watch, I would think.
Yeah, Tony, and it seems that they dialed it back a little bit this year, or much more than years past. But it seems that the last couple of games that they have kind of cranked it back up.
Yeah, they have. I don't think, Mike, that personnel-wise we were as good as a pressing team this year, but statistically not too far away from what they have been over the last 4 years, which was a surprise to me when they put the 4-year comparison in, and West Virginia's been pressing now for 4 seasons. It wasn't as unproductive, for lack of a better term, as it appeared to be for those that followed. I thought last year's was really good. Last year's was probably the best, and this year it still at times can cause problems, and it's always interesting to see when a team has to deal with it for the first time. So, again, really interesting because Nova has such great ball handlers. This will be the first team we've played all year that literally has the ability to play 5 out. Our coaches are comparing them a lot to Kansas, but Kansas plays with 1 big in, and these guys can play 5 out. So it's going to be a challenge.
With that, we see a lot of Brunson. He's a guy that people in this area, in Bridges, those two guys. You don't see a lot of teams in the NCAA anymore have something that West Virginia has, which is 2 senior guards, and you wonder how that matchup will really take shape. I mean, Carter, a lot of times, is the best player on the floor. This might be a game that he's going to have somebody who's equally as talented, if not more talented than him.
Yeah, and in the small world category, they know each other. They're both from the Chicago area, and they played AAU together. Former NBA player Dickie Simpkins was their AAU coach. So they know each other, played against each other, played with each other. So I think there's mutual respect there. And you are right in that Daxter Miles and Javon Carter are the most senior guard tandem in all of college basketball. I was putting some notes together earlier today, and those guys have played a ton of games. I mean, tomorrow it's Miles' 136th game at West Virginia. It's Carter's 144th game. So what is that? That's 280 games combined between those two, and they've started a combined 236 games as of tomorrow. So they're extremely seasoned. And you mentioned Carter, and everyone knows what he can do. He's Defensive Player of the Year a year ago nationally, and he's an All-American this year. Miles is kind of the X factor. When he can go and play well, it's a whole different West Virginia team. So I think Carter, Brunson are going to be the thing a lot of people watch, but Miles will be I think, the key in the game. Our
guest is Tony Caridi here from the, of course, he'll call tomorrow night's West Virginia-Villanova game for the Mountaineers. He's on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline, Sweet 16. The game's here on 97.3 ESPN. Tony, you've seen a lot of great teams and a lot of great players. I was just on vacation with an alum, and I was saying, when I went to West Virginia way back in 1995, I never would have thought that the basketball team, they were just getting into the Big East, they were taking their lumps, that the basketball team would give this, be this level of program that they've become. But where is Carter for you in, this run since about when they started to turn the corner and become a perennial tournament team?
I think that his legacy is quickly ascending. I think that he will go down. Now, statistically, he's done some things that no Mountaineer player ever has. I mean, he's going to leave as the all-time steals leader. Just what he's done in this tournament so far. He's the first player in NCAA tournament history to average 24 points, have 5 rebounds, and 5 steals in the first 2 games of a tournament. No one's ever done that, and he broke one of Allen Iverson's tournament records as well when we were out in San Diego last week. So statistically, he can make a strong argument for being one of the all-time best. He really can. I mean, he's an All-American, so he's definitely in a very small group of being one of the all-time top players. And you alluded earlier, this Carter Miles backcourt, back when they were freshmen and they were just starting to see, I said, these guys are going to be perfect because they're not good enough to go pro early. They're not good enough to go pro early, but they're going to be really good college basketball players. And that's what they are. Javon averages 18, 5 rebounds, 7 assists, and among the best in the nation in steals. And Daxter averages 13 points and is a really good defensive player as well. So they really hit a very unique situation here that they have senior guards who have just grown within the program.
That's an interesting point, Tony, with all the talk about, the one and dones and everything. It's trying to find that guy, and Carter was a guy that nobody thought would be this level of player. And when you find them and they stay for all 4 years, they a lot of times it's a special situation.
It always amazes me in this world that we live in where everyone is these recruiting experts and all this kind of stuff. Still to this day, guys get missed. And Javon Carter had offers from Valparaiso and Dartmouth coming out of high school. And they were playing AAU, and Dickie Simpkins, who I mentioned earlier, knew Huggs, and he said, Huggs, I got a guy, and West Virginia's assistants, one by one, went and watched him play at I don't know if you're familiar with, over at Disney during in the summer. They have the big AAU deal there, and they each took turns going over to watch this kid, and Huggs has told this story a bunch where it was 8 in the morning, and Huggs is having his coffee, and he's looking down the other end of the court, about 2 courts over, and there's this kid at 8 in the morning, and he's just pressing his butt off. And that was Carter. And he said, I don't know exactly skill-wise what I was going to think, what I thought, but I just knew that he was pressing at 8 o'clock in the morning. He wanted to play hard, and we can kind of teach him the rest. And he really has. He really has done a wonderful job of developing as a player. You hear the cliches of this guy's always in the gym. This guy truly is always. He's always been there for the last 4 years. He's made himself better each and every year. And so, I don't know if he's an NBA guy, but he's definitely a pro. He'll make money somewhere, whether it be here or whether it be in Europe. The guy's going to make a lot of money because he's a good kid. He's never been in an ounce of trouble, doesn't do any of the bad stuff, and he'll be a good pro.
I'll tell you, Tony, in my tenure following WVU's athletics, he's one guy that I can legitimately say I am going to miss watching him play. He is that kind of player that he just leaves it out there all the time. I am really going to miss watching him play. But kind of fill our listeners in who are wondering about Villanova. They got all these guards. How do they match up with Konate?
Well, it's a good question. You're talking about, for those that don't follow West Virginia on a regular basis, that we have a player by the name of Sagaba Konate who's from Mali, and this is his 4th year of organized basketball. And he is 3rd in the nation in block shots. And he's just kind of a really weird style player in that he's not really huge. He's 6'8", which normally shot blockers are in that 6'10" plus range. And he's just had an incredible year. He's got 113 blocks this season. He's on his way to becoming the school's all-time leader in block shots. And he's averaging 11 points and 8 rebounds. And he's shooting over 50% from the field. So he's a big physical guy, 6'8", 260. And exactly how Nova matches up with him, and the other part of it, Mike, is Nova's going to take him out away from the basket because they've got guys that can shoot the ball. So that's the cat and mouse game that's going to be going on. So he's a handful. Has done a good job staying out of foul trouble. The way that this game is officiated tomorrow is going to be very, very key. West Virginia needs a good whistle. Obviously, West Virginia presses. They play aggressive. If you have something that's going to be called very tight, that does not behoove West Virginia in the least bit. Through the first two games of the tournament, the whistle's been really good, and they've let them play. But if it's a tight whistle, which you hate to see at this time of the year, that can be problematic.
Yeah, West Virginia beating Marshall the other night. I mean, that game, Marshall goes up early, but it just went. I mean, they just overwhelmed them, Tony. I mean, that press just overwhelmed a smaller, Marshall team. Admittedly, this will be a big step up. It should be a lot of fun for you. I used to see Villanova all the time, obviously in the Big East, not so much in the last couple of years, but. What to you is the biggest factor for West Virginia to pull off what would be, I guess, to many an upset?
So you'd think I'd say defensively, but I think obviously we've got to make the game go fast. Now you might think, well, Villanova wants to go up and down; they want to play fast. No, West Virginia needs to play fast. This is not a game that West Virginia needs to be in the 60s or the 70s on. They need to make it as ugly and as crazy as possible. They need to get Villanova out of its rhythm, which is easier said than done. But if you just let Villanova walk the ball up the floor and let them get their stuff, they're just too good. They're marksmen. They're gonna make shots. So West Virginia needs to quicken the pace, make them play a little bit quicker than they want, and then ultimately, and you followed this team this year, we have a propensity at times to go super ice cold. And we shot the ball well the last two games in the tournament. We played well in the Big 12 tournament, made to the championship game before getting beat by Kansas. We've got to make shots. We've got to make perimeter shots. So we did it well on Sunday against Marshall. I got some good bench points from three different players who got into double figures, Lamont West and Beetle Bolden and Teddy Allen. We just got to make shots. If they do that, then they'll be right in there toward the end.
That game's tomorrow night. You can listen to it here on 97.3 ESPN. Sweet 16, Villanova taking on West Virginia. Tony, I'm getting a lot of texts that people are telling me, I can't believe I'm listening to Tony Caridi right now. I mean, you got all these alum. There's a lot of alum in this area,
Well, it's great. Great Mountaineer Nation. I know that, and I appreciate you having me on, man.
Tony, good to catch up, pal.
All right, you take care. Thank you, Mike.